Okay, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you all for coming to learn together a little bit this afternoon. It's always beautiful to see that as we approach each Yom Tov, each very important occasion on the Jewish calendar, that we approach it with a sense of excitement and with a sense of knowledge of the messages and an understanding of what it is that we're looking to draw from the Yom Tov on a ruchnius level, on the spiritual level. And I wanted to share with you an idea about Hanukkah that I think speaks to what the heart of Hanukkah really is. But we're going to back into it by talking about a little bit about the parsha that always falls out in Shabbos Hanukkah. Shabbos Hanukkah always falls out. Parshas Miketz. Sometimes there are two Shabbos of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is 8 days long, so sometimes it overlaps with two parshios. But it always falls out in Parshas Miketz. Paro sees in his dream that there are 7 Paros, Yafos, Mara, Urias Basar. He sees that there are cows that are really good-looking cows. They are very fleshy cows, which if you're a meat eater is exactly what you're looking for. And Yosef sees these, I don't know what the best word to use, but these robust, maybe that's the word, these robust-looking cows. And Yosef says, oh, that means that there's 7 years of plenty that is coming up. Or at least that's the story that we've been told. That Yosef says it's going to be 7 years of a lot, because these cows look like a lot. In fact, though, if you were to open up a Chumash and you were to actually read what it says over there, Yosef never said that there are going to be 7 years of plenty. He never said that there are going to be 7 years of a lot. What he said was, Hinei sheva shamim ba'os, sova gadol b'chol ha'etz Mitzrayim. Sova does not mean plenty. It means to be satiated. It means to be satisfied. Now, anybody who has ever experienced a certain career trajectory or increase in salary or in ability to make money knows without a shadow of a doubt that plenty and sova are not at all the same thing. Not at all the same thing. In fact, sometimes there's an inverse relationship. If you have 100, you want 200. And what do you want if you have 200? Probably even more, right? Probably more than 400. Meaning we only begin to start appreciating or start feeling like we want to get to that next level. We're always looking at, as soon as we get close to the goal line moves further away. And that's people's attitude about material wealth. I can't tell you how many people have told me that as their careers advanced and they started making more and more money, they kept feeling like they have less and less. My father once told me that he was talking to a friend of his, Michael Sanders, the fellow of Russia, and he said to him, after they were already established in their professional lives, and they knew each other from when they were very young, and Michael said to my father, we're just as poor as we used to be. It's just much bigger numbers. But we're just as poor as we used to be. There is that sense that a person there's a huge difference. In fact, I would submit that if you see, let's say, a person who is rail thin, so that person apparently has sova, because they're not eating so much, because apparently they feel somewhat satisfied. You see a person who's not able to control how much they eat, so they become very big. So riboy is not sova. It's in fact the opposite of sova. So how exactly does Yosef look at these robust cows and say, oh, there must be satiation? I would think there's going to be gluttony. There's going to be a desire. There's going to be demand. There's going to be people that want more and more and more. So let's talk about Hanukkah for a little bit, and then we'll come around to answer this question. Whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu performs a miracle, it's important to note that especially if it's not just a miracle that happens one time, but a miracle that we relive and we re-experience and we talk about it, we tell our children about it, a miracle like the Nes Hanukkah. It's not just a way for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to flex his muscles. It's not some sort of like spiritual parlor trick that Hashem is doing as a way of saying, oh, look what I can do. Check out this cool trick. There's always a message to the miracle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu performs. We're supposed to study a miracle the way we study a sugya of Gemara, the way we study a parsha in Chumash, the way we study something when we want to analyze, plumb its depth, and really appreciate what it's all about. If God performs a miracle, we're supposed to try to understand that miracle. We can look, for instance, at the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim and talk all Seder night about them and what the lessons meant to be derived from them ought to be. We've spoken in the past about how the miracles of the Seder night, when we talk about them, are meant to reinforce all the Yud Gimel Karnei Amuna. And how if you go through the Haggadah on the Seder night, you'll find all the 13 principles of our faith repeating themselves over and over again. If you look carefully enough, you find the foundations of our outlook, of our hashkafa, in those miracles. So what exactly is the message of the little jug of oil that would not burn, that would not be consumed, that even though it was burning, would not be consumed, that it just didn't get lower? What's the message of a fire that doesn't consume its fuel? It's impressive. I don't know, as far as miracles go, not as impressive as a lot of the other miracles God did. I think I've mentioned here in the past that I've experienced at Eis Chanukah in my whole life. I once had a car that the battery died, and I brought it to the mechanic, and the mechanic said, "This battery is the original battery on the car. This should have died 4 years ago." It's an Eis Chanukah, huh? It only had so much juice. It was only supposed to run for so long. And I had this miracle that was driving me around for all this time. As far as miracles go, the amount of fuel lasting for longer than it should have lasted does not seem to be the most impressive miracle. Kriyas Yamsuf seems to be much bigger, seems to be much more impressive. So what exactly, there must be a message here. There must be something to study in this miracle. So I want to share with you a story that I have no idea. I have no idea if the story is true. It appears in a sefer called Zos Chanukah. I would imagine there are several svarim by that name, but there's a particular sefer called Zos Chanukah that was shown to me by a friend of mine, Binyamin Pam, and he showed me this story. The story was of a doctor in Turkey, country, who was a Yoreh V'Shaleh, back in the days when there were a lot of Jews in Turkey. And he happened to have been the personal physician of the Sultan. I don't know what year this story goes back to. I don't know if the sefer even claims to have a year that it goes back to. But there was this physician, a frum guy, and he was the personal physician of the Sultan. And they would talk about Jewish practices from time to time. The Sultan was curious, and he was particularly interested in learning about Jewish holidays. So he would often ask about the Jewish holidays. And one time the Sultan had occasion to visit the doctor's home on the last night of Chanukah, and he asked him, "Tell me the meaning of these candles." And the doctor told him, "Oh, it's actually fascinating." You know, sometimes you get those questions about Judaism, and you're like, "Oh, how am I going to exploit this one?" But this was a pretty easy one, right? The meaning of these candles, it's a great story, right? We know the story that they checked the whole Beis HaMikdash, and they only found one little thing of oil with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and it was supposed to last for only 1 day, but it lasted for 8 days. And the Sultan was impressed, and he said, "That's why," and the doctor says, "That's why we celebrate 8 days of Hanukkah, and that's why we have 8 candles." And the Sultan looks at the menorah, the Chanukiah, and he goes, "There are 9 candles." What are you talking about? There's no 8 candles, there are 9 candles. What's that 9th candle for? The Sultan didn't think to ask the Beis Yosef said his kasha of why 8 days and not 7 days if there was enough oil. He didn't think he wasn't such a London, but he said, "I know how to count. You tell me that there are 8 days. There are 9 candles over there." So the doctor said, "It's not really so important. The 9th candle doesn't really matter. It's just, it's the shamash, so we use it to light the other candles. You can't light candles without a candle, so we have a 9th candle that helps us light the other candles. That's what it's all about." And the Sultan said, "That's ridiculous. I mean, that's the meaning of the night. The first 8 candles have such glorious meaning to them. They have such a history. They have so much about, and the 9th candles, just because, just like a practical necessity, you're hiding something from me. It can't be. If the entire purpose of this candle was just like the others, then why don't you blow it out when you finish, right? When you light your Shabbos candles, if you're lighting with a match, you blow out the match and you put it, right? Well, why is it? Well, there's no way that you would just leave it and it would be given an elevated spot in your menorah. It just doesn't make sense. And he was so offended that the doctor would not tell him the secret of the Shabbos. That he told the doctor, I never want to see you again until you're ready to reveal to me the secret of this ninth candle, because obviously you're hiding something from me. The doctor went out, and he was devastated. He just lost his job, essentially. His prized patient, the one that paid his salary, was the Sultan, and now he doesn't want to see him again. And he started taking a walk, and on his walk, he ran into an elderly Yid. And this sweet elderly Yid asked the doctor, why do you look so sad? It's always a good question to ask someone if they look sad. It's important to notice these things. Sometimes you're able to open up a lot in a person and give a person an opportunity to talk about what they're going through in life. It's very, very, it's a good mussar to have, something that we learn actually from this week's parsha. Rabbi Isaac Bernstein once commented in one of his shiurim that, in the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev, Yosef is on top of the world. He's the favorite son of Yaakov Avinu. He's got this fancy jacket. His brothers all have to work all day, and he's learning with his father. He's on top of the world. He's the chosen one. And then, by the end of Parshas Vayeshev, he's rotting away in an Egyptian jail. By the beginning of Parshas Miketz, he's rotting away in this Egyptian jail. By the end of Parshas Miketz, he's on top of the world again. He's running the whole world. He's running the world economy. He's controlling everything. So Rabbi Isaac Bernstein said that he once said under a chuppah, if anyone needs a Dvar Torah for a Shabbos Shabbat, it's this week, but he once said under a chuppah, what did Yosef do so wrong between the beginning of Vayeshev and the end of Vayeshev? And what did he do so right between the beginning of Parshas Miketz and the end of Parshas Miketz? It's such a simple, profound idea. At the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev, Yosef was running around telling everyone, "Oh, you know what I dreamed? You know what my dream was? You know what I'm thinking? You know what I saw?" And that was his downfall. All the way at the end of Parshas Vayeshev, Yosef is sitting in a jail with a couple of other downtrodden fellows, and he turns to them and he says, "Tell me about your dreams. Tell me what's on your mind. Tell me what's bothering you." And that was the turn act. And then, by the end of Parshas Miketz, he was on top of the world. A great message from Chassan and Kala. One of my friends once said at a Shavkat Machlis that a Chassan is Domer V'Melech. Sometimes they say that Chassan is Domer V'Melech, but I really likes to say, as long as he treats his wife like a Malka, he's Domer V'Melech. But make Chassan Domer V'Melech, because the Melech knows when he puts his head on his pillow at night, he cannot be thinking only about himself. He needs to be thinking, Melech has to be thinking about the welfare of the entire country. A chassan is Domer Melech because the first time in his life when he puts his head on his pillow at night, he cannot be thinking only about himself. He needs to be thinking more broadly. So it's a good idea. It's a good idea to look at people every now and then. And if you see that someone looks sad, say, what's the matter? Is it okay? Anything I can help with? Do you want to talk? If a person looks happy, it's a great opportunity to let them express that joy. I see the Cohns over here, David Cohn, my dear friend, brother of Joe Cohn, has an unbelievable story about how he met his wife. He was about 30 years old, 29 years old, been in Shidduchim for a while. The top guy, Wagin Smicha, Columbia Law School, great resume, great family, wonderful parents. And he got into a cab in Israel. He got into a taxi in Israel. And he was upset, he was sad. He was just, the dating was hard, it was difficult. And the taxi driver said to him, "You look so sad. What's the matter?" And he doesn't know why, but he opened up to the taxi driver. He was like, at that point, that I'll open up even to the taxi driver. And he said, Shidduchim is really hard. It's been such a challenge, it's been such a grind. And the driver says, "We're going to Amuka right now. We're going to go down." He said, "I'm a caller, I can't even go in." He said, "I'll daven for you, we're going." And they drove 4 hours to Amuka or whatever. And the taxi driver, "What are you davening for him? I don't know how much you paid the guy." Fine. The next day he said, that was just such a weird experience. He normally did a lot of checking into his shidduchim before he said yes to a shidduch. A shidduch was suggested. It didn't even make sense. The girl was from somewhere in Europe. It didn't even and he just said yes. And sure enough, that was the girl he met. The day after they got engaged, his now wife, at that time Kala, was at the kotel, and she got into a taxi leaving the kotel, and the taxi driver said, "You look so happy. What's going on?" And she said, "Well, actually, I just got engaged." He said, "To who?" And she said, "Well, you wouldn't know. He's from, David Cohen." So the taxi driver says, "Mefas Tenstead?" And he attends their families, right? I'm not making this up, right? He attends their families, and he's a critical part of their life. Just there are more PSs to that story, but it's just an unbelievable Talmud that was so moved by that story, who was also struggling in Shidduch. He called him and he said, "I'm struggling," and Cohen told him, "Just go to Israel." And I told him, went to Israel, davened at the kotel, said, I think he met the taxi driver also, and he also got engaged in the next school. He did, okay, so this taxi driver in school. But there is something about asking someone, seeing another Yid, you look down, what's the matter? You look happy, what's going well? So this doctor was walking and he looked sad. So he sees this Alter Yid, and the Alter Yid, they don't call him Alter Yid in Turkey probably. He sees a Yehudi Zaken, and he says, and he says to him, "No, what's the matter?" And he says, I had this job with the Sultan, and he thinks I'm hiding something from him because I won't tell him the secret of the Shamish. I don't know what to do. So the elderly Yid turned to the doctor and he said, "Let me tell you the secret of the Shamish. You probably don't know the secret of the Shamish." The Shamish calls out to us and says, "Look at me. My oil came from the very same olives as all the other candles. And yet, the others are all holy. Nobody's even allowed to use them because they're so holy. All you can do is look at them. You cannot benefit from them. I didn't get a chance to be part of the mitzvah. I came from the same olives and I should have had a chance, and I'm not holy. I did not get a chance to be part of the mitzvah. I'm just a simple shamish. I'm a candle like any other. And you know what I do? I illuminate for any Yid who needs a little light to read or to learn or to not trip over himself, that he should be able to walk around in his own house and be able to see where he's going because he's not allowed to use the light of the other candles. So my mission here on earth is to illuminate for others. My entire purpose may not be the greatest holiness, but it's to provide for a Yid who needs a little something. And that's something you can learn from me. Regardless of your station in life, regardless of who you are, you can always provide a little light for another Jew. You can always do something to illuminate for another Jew. Now, obviously, I'm not certain that the story is true, but I am certain that the message is true. There are few things in life that are a greater privilege than providing a little light for another Jew. Rabbi Reisman explained that fire has 4 basic characteristics. It consumes, it spreads. While it's consuming, it spreads. Those two go hand in hand. It illuminates and it warms. It's interesting to note that there are 2 times in history that we know of where a purely spiritual fire existed, and it only had the positive attributes of fire and none of the negative attributes of fire. Moshe Rabbeinu sees a sneh boer ba'esh. He's wandering in the midbar and he sees this bush that's on fire, but it was a henukah. It wasn't being consumed. The fire didn't have any impact on the bush. It didn't destroy. It didn't spread. It stayed contained inside the bush. The spiritual fire illuminates, it warms, but it doesn't consume. It doesn't destroy. The Jewish people traveling in the Midbar had a similar fire. They had an Ananei Eish, Namud Eish, that directed them. But that fire too, it didn't spread, it didn't consume, it didn't destroy, it illuminated, it helped, it guided the Jewish people. When Hashem performed the miracle of the Pat Shemen, he gave this physical fire the qualities and the properties of a spiritual fire. It's an unbelievable fire, what I'm telling you now. Let me just put it in a more pointed way so that you'll realize just how game-changing this idea is. We talk about the miracle of the oil. What if there was no miracle of the oil? It was the fire that was the miracle. The oil didn't burn, not because there was anything unique about the oil. It wasn't shemen shalnes. It was a fire that had spiritual qualities, but no physical qualities. It was an eish that doesn't consume. You could have lit anything with that eish, and it would not have consumed it. It was an eish that illuminates, an eish that warms, but an eish that doesn't consume. Or you got the whole miracle backwards. That's what Rav Reisman suggested. The miracle wasn't in the oil and that it didn't burn, it was in the fire that it didn't consume. And the message for us is that even as we try to accomplish and be a force for good, we're supposed to provide light and warmth, but never chas v'shalom to consume or to destroy. The greatest fire of Torah is that which provides for others, that which we're able to use to provide for others. There are other purposes of fire as well. Fire also cooks, and fire provides kavod. The Gemara says that when they want to honor a special event, they light fire. There's a minute people lock their children down, they'll stop holding the candle. Fire is a way of expressing a sense of light and kavod, even when you don't really need the light. The ability to harness the energy of fire in order to sustain and to nourish fits so beautifully with the spiritual fire. Fire cooks, it nourishes. The idea of a fire for kavod is alluded to in the halacha of a yahrzeit candle, or candles at a wedding, as I mentioned before. We don't need them. We don't need them for the warmth. We don't need them for the light. They're there just for kavod, just to provide kavod for others. So now let's go back to Yosef's dream and the interpretation of Yosef's dream. Or Yosef's interpretation rather is parting the dream. It's true. He did not promise years of plenty. He only promised years of satiation, not years of plenty. According to Rashi, he also didn't see fat cows. Well, that's the story in Gedol, that he saw fat cows. Rashi remarkably writes that he saw Sheva Paros Yefos Mar'eh. What does Yefos Mar'eh mean? Beautiful. Good-looking cows. I don't know, I rate cows in terms of what, but he saw good-looking cows. No, that can't be what Rashi means. It can't mean good-looking cows. Says Rashi, that's what Chumash says. Shem Yepros Yefos Mar'eh says Rashi. Simen hu liyamei hasova, sha'abrios niros yafos zu lezu, she'en bria tzara b'chaverta. Not good-looking cows, cows that looked kindly at one another, cows that looked goodly at one another. Yefos Mar'eh, that's what the Chumash says. Rashi says that means, I'll say it again, I'll read it again, Shabrios Niros Yafos Zul V'Zul. So it's not that there will be years of plenty. There are going to be years of Brios Niros Yafos Zul V'Zul, of people looking kindly at one another. There's a great Talmud Chacham in South Florida, Rabbi Zweig Shlita. Rabbi Zweig points out, he has a beautiful sefer on Chumash Bereshis. He points out that a person can be seen as satisfied when they can look kindly upon others and not begrudge them for the things that they possess. When they can see other people have, and they're okay with that, and they're actually genuinely happy for that. When they're able to celebrate other people's simchas without seeing it as a threat to them. A person who feels a twinge of displeasure when he sees that others possess something is a person who is not satisfied with who they are. It's a person who is lacking. Yosef's entire plan of having people put away produce into a national fund during the 7 good years could never have been accomplished during years of mere plenty. Plenty doesn't do it. Plenty is what we experience in America today. It does not create a greater life satisfaction. There's more anxiety, there's more depression, there's more of all of these things today than we've ever had. And you can't explain it because we have good lives, certainly historically speaking, but even relatively speaking. It requires years of satisfaction to want to help others. If this national fund is going to go, it's going to help and it's going to save humanity, people need to be satisfied. They don't need to have plenty. A satisfied person doesn't need to milk every last dollar that he has. He's able to help other people. You know, the Zemer of Tzur Mishalom, we sing, well, I don't, because I can't sing on key, but those who sing, Savarnu v'hosarnu kidvar Hashem. We were satiated, and therefore v'hosarnu. V'hosarnu means we had extra. The litmus test of satisfaction is to have extra that you don't need to eat. You know, there's a beautiful minhag. There's a concept called the tinus horizon. It's not an actual tinus, it's not an actual fast. The tinus horizon is during every meal, a person leaves a little something on his plate that he doesn't finish. Just to show, I have died on those sack. I have enough and a little extra. I have more than I actually need. It's a way of saying, I don't need to eat everything that's in front of me. But please enjoy it. We often assume that whatever is placed in front of us, you know, is the definition of a serving size. There's no din that you need to polish off the entire giant plate. It doesn't have to be that way. A person can, you know, there's no din that you need to eat the entire sufganiyah. You can have half a sufganiyah too. And it expresses a certain amount of self-control. That I have, and I don't need to have everything. Because I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with what I have. It's a minor behavior that just conveys a certain message. And maybe the lasting message of Hanukkah is that we are meant to mimic the spiritual light and make sure never to destroy or to consume, but to illuminate and to warm for others. And the way we do that is by first focusing on making sure that we have a sense of sober, that we're grateful for what we have, that we don't have this unending desire for more and more and more, that we have a sense of satisfaction. And that sense of sober gives us the impetus and the willingness to provide for another yid, as a proud shamash would do. So as we go into the Yom Tov of Hanukkah, we should realize that maybe this Turkish doctor didn't know, and maybe the Sultan wasn't able to get in the secret right away. But now we know the secret of the Shamash. So let's all yearn and strive to be that special Shamash that's able to light for other Jews.